Hello and welcome. Good evening or good afternoon, depending on where you are, to this live panel. Acceleration of operators' video strategies through the cloud is our topic. It's a very technical topic, so I'm happy we can dig deep into all these technical aspects of this topic. And we have three great experts for you waiting to discuss exactly those subjects. We have Rodrigo Fernandez, who's product director for OTT products at Ardetto. Hello, Rodrigo. Nice to have you.
Hello, Jörn. Thank you for having me.
We have Ran Yanai, Vice President TV and Media from Seating Group. Hi, Ran.
Hi. Nice meeting you, everyone.
And we have Dimitri Parouis, Head of TV Systems and Services Development at OTE Group in Greece. Hello, Dimitri.
Hi, Jörn. Very happy to be part.
A great panel is waiting for you, but this panel is made for you. So of course you are an active part. This is live and you are more than welcome to submit your questions or suggestions. Anything you'd like to know from these three experts, please do so and use the chat box, and we will then happily respond to anything that's on your mind. We're going to get started with a very basic aspect of the cloud services and cloud strategies used by operators and service providers. We're going to start with you, Rodrigo. Ardetto being a service provider with a long track record, a long history of providing security services and DRM solutions and so on. Everybody knows the company. But what about the cloud aspect? That is something rather new. Would you be able to quickly update us on the purposes used by your clients for cloud services and the disruptive element that they can create through using cloud-based services, of course, with the support of Ardetto?
Right. So, well, in terms of disrupting our operations, a few years ago, we were offering our multi-DRM services on customer dedicated stacks. So we were building stacks specific for each one of the customers. One of the aspects that was really challenging for us was once we start scaling that business to having, dozens and hundreds of customers, we start having an operational challenge in terms of release management, support, and so on. And that's when we look into the, building basically a global cloud, which we launched back in 2018 to, serve our customers globally. I think in terms of disruption, I think totally changed the way how we develop, how we release, and how we support the products, as I mentioned. And it also forces to disrupt the way of how some of our customers, are used to use our products in terms of, for example, release management, change management. Obviously, when you run a cloud and a cloud service that you're serving multiple customers, when you roll out changes and you have the ability to roll out changes much quicker, much faster. So we also improved in terms of releasing every 3 months to releasing multiple times a week sometimes. But also in terms of change management, right? Because there's the concept of network freezes where you have 4 weeks and that you don't touch the system, then you need basically to change not only our operations but also the way how some of our customers look into this, how we provide these services to them. As you mentioned, our primary, at least in the area that I'm responsible for, our primary cloud service is a multi-DRM cloud. We have a global deployment. We are one of the largest, if not the largest, DRM provider in the world. We serve around 3.4 billion transactions per month. But it's not only about the DRM. I mean, we see a lot of our customers using cloud for, backend services to build in the backend APIs, moving the transcoding and packaging infrastructure, supporting services, and so on, but also the development and deployment pipelines, for example.
So I hear that the cloud is playing an increasingly important role for your clients. And we have one of these operators here with the RAN and Seating Group, mainly active in Central and Eastern Europe. Could you elaborate a bit on what role the cloud is playing in your operations and what the disruptive element has really been?
Yeah, no problem. So before I came to Setin and to the Czech Republic, I was born and raised in Israel, and I, in 2014, together with the team, launched one of the first OTT solutions, which was like a multi-device and was really, let's call it, innovative back then. But we started to have all those pain points that usually on-site solutions are having, which is like shaking knees between or before like every super classico or every like big soccer game, or having concerns what will be next month that there is like, I don't know, like a X Factor final, and all the time in terms of like performance, in terms of as was mentioned by Rodrigo, the performance of the encryption part, and what will happen with the solution, whether or not one of the servers will go down. It was really a pain. And when I moved, and it was back then an on-prem solution, and when I moved to Czech Republic here as part of Setin, we are building. Uh, a very like huge multi-tenancy solution, which is a cloud solution, which is about to serve more than 5 countries already who joined, and the first launch is about to happen soon. And what we can say is that there is like huge benefits of using the cloud. Suddenly, all the what we call the fact that the cloud is elastic and allows you to grow automatically, the fact that you can deploy on the spot, the fact that you are not concerned anymore that something will happen, because if you build it right, and this is also a challenge, because the fact that you are in the cloud does not mean that everything will be fluent. You need to trust someone who knows how to do it right and knows how to make sure that the solution will be good enough when those events will come. But right now, what we see that we have like the solution deployed in several places, the fact that you don't need to install servers in different countries, the fact that everything is like centralized, and the fact that right now everyone understands that we can trust the cloud. At the beginning in 2000, I don't know, 17, 16, there was challenges by CTOs whether or not the cloud is good enough, stable, from whom I'm getting the SLA, to whom I'm calling if something is not working. Those questions are already not relevant. And now everyone understands that we need to go to the cloud. It's not a question. And the cloud is solving all or most of the problems which are related to performance, to stability, to growth, and for everything.
So that is a clear and positive message regarding the benefits of the cloud, and especially regarding the development that this has undergone in the past few years. It's an ongoing process, of course, with more and more operators using the cloud. One of them is OTE in Greece. So over to you, Dimitri. Would you be able to quickly explain the role that cloud-based services are playing in OTE's operations and how this has changed the services you're able to offer?
Okay, just a quick comment to Rahan. The main challenges are coming from our DPO mainly for data privacy stuff. So definitely the cloud disrupted our TV operations. No question about this. If we go back a few years ago, the OTT video technology followed the same mindset like the broadcast. It was hardware based. On-prem infrastructure serving the needs of pay TV business for several years as a complementary service. And this is a very strong word. It was a complementary service, built like a complementary service. It was part of existing, at least to us. I mean, we are still an operator that we have other propositions as well, the IPTV and hybrid and the satellite one. So it was a complementary. It was the era of the multi-screen. Now the TV propositions are built as OTT first, as cloud first. We named our project as Cloud TV, and there was a reason about this. I mean, if you look at the press releases at the last 2-3 years, you won't find any single press release which is not OTT and is not cloud oriented to any percentage. The disruptions are many. At least what we can think of is the rise of media OTT companies, the connectivity of 5G and Wi-Fi 6, the penetration of big screens like smart TVs and smartphones. All these disruptions are changing a lot the way that we operate and we build our products and services. Keep in mind that the giants of streaming were built cloud first, were born and raised in the cloud. This was not the case, and it's not the case for the pay TV operators that pre-existed and especially broadcasters. In the last few years, Cosmote TV has increasingly been involved towards the cloud-based solutions. We offer, which will offer an affordable and simpler way of building new services, new channels, pushing on-demand content, building delivery networks with scalability and efficiency, and of course, most of the times reducing time to market. Such cloud solutions, even for us, for OT, are very central in the video workflow, in the OTT video workflow. Just to name a few. I mean, it's from encoding, live encoding, on-demand encoding, packaging, just-in-time packaging and encryption, storage, storing content in the cloud, content monetization like recommendation engines, and of course, delivery of content, CDNs.
Now we've heard all sorts of benefits and examples about services that the cloud can be used for by an operator. But Rodrigo, if I was a new player in the market and I would approach you and say, look, I'm thinking about using the cloud for my services. What sort of reasons would you give me why I should choose the cloud? Is it all what we've just heard about innovative new services and different features, storage, and so on? But is it also cost saving, for example, or the security aspect? What would you highlight if I was a client approaching you, Rodrigo?
Right. So, I mean, to start with, when you talk about cloud service, typically there wouldn't be an upfront investment, right? Normally, a lot of the cloud services have a pay-as-you-go model, a subscription model. So that would be one of the obvious benefits. I mean, time to market is certainly also a differentiator. If I compare how much time it took us 5 years ago to onboard a customer, it would typically was around 1 month. We had to build a stack for a customer. Right now is literally a matter of minutes until a customer is up and running and has access to our cloud service, which is an API-based service. I mean, you mentioned the security aspect. I think the security aspect is also important, especially when the service is managing security sensitive assets, encryption keys, certificates, user information, because a lot of these cloud services, they have such a broad range of customers that they would normally be audited by third parties, and so you can leverage that. Whereas if you have your own internal infrastructure, if your customers are asking for security certifications, you need to take care of that. You need to hire a third-party company to come in, audit your infrastructure, audit your release release process, your support process, all that, the way how you handle all the aspects of security. I think going beyond that, I think there's a lot of other aspects that we found are very useful for us. For example, a lot of the large cloud vendors provide managed services, managed platforms, for example, managed databases, managed Kubernetes, managed Kafka, which, I mean, I'm not to say that this is going to be useful for everyone, but I think at least for us has been really, really useful because we didn't have to build this, this infrastructure for these databases, for Kubernetes, for Kafka, for event streaming. We could leverage the managed services that are available by, by the different cloud providers we use. mean, scalability is obviously another one. The elasticity provided by the cloud services, the global coverage that we leverage to provide, extra levels of resiliency and scalability. And then, as I mentioned, the ability for us to innovate. If we want to test something, we can very easily ramp up, infrastructure without minimal investments. We can deploy faster. We can build and release features much faster to the market. Like I mentioned before, previously we would be making a release every 3 months, and then we would have basically to upgrade every environment, every single customer that we had. Whereas now we're making, sometimes several incremental updates to our cloud service every week, so we can make the latest functionality available very fast once we get and process a requirement.
So these are clear benefits, of course, that you've just mentioned. Now, Ran, you've already briefly touched the subject of problems that you experienced with cloud-based services in the past, lots of years ago, in the early days of the cloud, let's put it this way. And now we've heard all about the benefits, and that is all clear. But of course, there remain challenges. I mean, there's no product in the world without challenges. So one of the challenges, Ran, you mentioned earlier was peaks, of course. Let's talk about live football streaming, the classic nightmare of all the broadcasters that are using OTT services. The final game of the football European Championship or even the Football World Cup, your national team is part of the final, and you try to stream that to the widest audience possible. So, Ran, what are your experiences with this, and where is the situation now with the cloud-based services? Can the cloud handle all of this?
Okay, it's a very good question. And actually, I was more referring to the challenges that I had to the past when I had the on-prem solution.
Okay. Yeah.
Challenging of having a cloud solution. I think that my colleagues here will support me by saying that most of the operators right now, despite of the benefits of the cloud solution, having on-prem CDNs. The fact that they are having on-prem CDNs usually derived from the fact that a CDN for the operator, cloud is still much more expensive than on-prem CDNs. So most of the operators right now still have on-prem CDNs. They are planning their peaks. Usually they have the experience to understand and to measure what will be the concurrency, what is the average bitrate. They are planning in advance sometimes to squeeze a little bit the bit rates before the match, etc. What the cloud is bringing is actually, and it really depends on the CDN provider that you are working with, is an opportunity to offload to the cloud. For example, to have your on-prem CDNs, to plan your capacity, to plan whatever, but instead of buying the extra 20 or 30% capacity for the CDNs to be used once or twice per year, you can automatically offload to, let's call it cloud solutions like Akamai, for example. So right now, what we are able to do is to have our cost-efficient solution as an on-prem CDNs to plan it in advance, etc. But instead of buying 30% extra capacity to few hours a year, you can offload automatically to the cloud, to services like Akamai, for example, and by that to be able to manage the capacity for the CDN. What the cloud is also solving is other problems which are related to super classical or final or the final of your national team is something which is related to encryption, login, and registration to services, which usually happen just 5 minutes before the game starts.
Exactly.
And then you have the peak, not just on the video servers, but the fact that, 90% of your viewers or customers are about to do the login, the authentication, and the decryption and everything just in the last 2 minutes before the game. Usually this cause the congestion and sometimes the blackouts that some OTT providers are having before matches. So the cloud, by the fact that this is like, if you're doing it right, can handle it in a way that you will get extra resources to avoid those kind of blackout if you do it right. This is the concept that I'm supporting.
Yeah, that is a very interesting insight. And I think a lot of it is based on your experiences from the past, from these situations, critical situations. And I think it's a very important point you mentioned that most people log into the stream 5 minutes or 2 minutes earlier when the live game, the kickoff is, not far away. But then the problems arise with the login procedure, with the DRM activation, and so on and so on. And so this is, I think, quite a valuable point for other players in the market to learn. And you've also explained how you can solve these problems. And of course, I'd like to give Dimitri a chance to elaborate on that. What are your experiences in the cloud with these peaks and critical situations? How have you handled them, Dimitri?
Yeah. We handle with care, first of all.
As always.
We are, Cosmote TV has exclusive rights for sports contents and high quality sports content like Champions League, Europa League, and Conference League, the Greek Championship, and so on and so forth. So we're experienced with dealing of traffic spikes.
You know what you're talking about. You've had it before.
We know the pain. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So
I mean, it's like
we're
a tsunami.
interested.
It's like a tsunami. First, it comes with signaling services and DPG and metadata and login, of course. I mean, it's the content discovery. Someone is trying a new viewer or existing viewer is trying to log in the service, so it's hitting our identity management. Then it's trying to explore the UI, and there goes the navigation, content discovery, and then boom, you press the play button, DRM, concurrency, other checks, and then starts the CDN. So the typical example for dealing with traffic spikes is the CDNs, and CDNs should be built in a way that can swallow spikes of domestic or even international traffic if we're talking about more than one countries. Again, as Ran said previously, I think cloudification is a matter of balance. OTA is an ISP as an operator. For us, bandwidth is not an issue. Having pop sites with hundreds of gigabits of connectivity, it's not a big deal. We can accommodate and support this kind of traffic. In any case, there are use cases for cloud infrastructure and cloud use cases, even for CDN, even for us, because you can balance the traffic and offload, as Ran previously said. But there's another important use case is the disaster recovery. Oops, something goes wrong with your CDN service. It's very difficult to find out what is going on. Especially at the middle of a live event. Then you can simply delegate and pass over the traffic to a public CDN provider. Of course, provide the fact that you already have an integration and it's already communicating with and caching from your origin service. But this is double. Again, it's a matter of balance. We are operating this cloud TV environment for at least 2 years. It took us a few months to really understand the spikes, okay, and learn from the system, because we keep learning how our system reacts. It's not a system, actually it's a portfolio of systems and services and how they interact together. And we have been investing a lot of time, engineering time and effort with auto scaling, either scale out to accommodate and support the traffic excess, or even scale in for CapEx and OpEx reasons, because we understand for cloud, you don't do any upfront investments. You should pay as you go and consume the resources that you actually want. It doesn't make sense to go to a public CDN provider and order for several terabytes in 1 year, which I will consume only for 5 or 10 nights over 1 year. I should do it, try to buy the capacity today for the usage I have today.
Yeah, anticipate what capacity you need. That way you also save money and you make life easier for everyone involved, because you then avoid these problems that you might have. And just something, yeah, please.
It's the opposite. It's the opposite effect we used to have a few years ago. With the on-prem equipment, we were buying capacity today to meet the tomorrow's uncertainties. The future uncertainties. Now we just we benefit from the cloud and we reserve cloud resources ad hoc in case we need it and when we need it.
Yep, that is a clear example of how the cloud makes your life easier and less to worry about. But I think just what I'd like to throw in, there is a difference in the broadcast or streaming world between free services like the classic legacy public broadcasters, ARD, ZDF, BBC, and so on. In Greece, ERT is offering, where it's a free live stream of a football game accessible to anyone in the country, and you don't know how many people will watch it. It depends on the weather. For example, if it's summer, it's sunny outside, people will watch it on their balcony, on the terrace at a lake. But if it's raining all day, people will probably watch it at home. But you can't predict that. So this is, I think, where the cloud makes it easier. But also the structural difference, I think, is when you are a pay TV operator or SVOD operator, then of course you know exactly the maximum of streams that you can or that you have to deliver. That you know exactly your peak. I have 1.2 million subscribers, so now exactly 1.2 million streams is the maximum. So it's probably a bit easier for if you're a pay TV player than if you are a classic free-to-air broadcaster. But that is just something to think about. Rodrigo,
Jörn, can I just add something?
Sure.
It's more a little bit of a concrete example how we do scaling, because I think scaling is really important. And you've mentioned live streams and peak concurrency, peak usage. I mean, when you have a live event, typical live sports event or a reality show, you're going to have a lot of people starting the stream in a very short period of time, and that creates that high demand. Just to share a little bit how we've done on the back end, because I think that's valuable for the audience, because when you have such a high demand in such a period of time, you need to be able to scale really, really fast. And so, for example, a lot of the cloud vendors provide this auto scaling, spinning up new instances, which takes some minutes. Sometimes you don't have minutes in order to scale your infrastructure. Sometimes you need to scale it within a couple of seconds. The DRM is a good example because typically the players will acquire the license, within 1 to 2 seconds of the user pressing start. And so the way how we've addressed scalability, just to share our experience here, was we have a 3-layer scalability strategy. The first one, as I mentioned, we use Kubernetes. Kubernetes manage pods. I don't know if everyone is familiar, but a pod is basically the smallest deployable unit of computing that you can have. And a pod typically holds, a couple of services. And so that for us is the first line of scalability. Pods can be within a virtual machine. We can deploy new pods to add instant capability within 10-15 seconds. So once the capacity of that server is expanded, well, hopefully before the entire virtual machine capacity is filled up, we are starting to spin up new instances, which typically takes 2-3 minutes. And that's our second line for scalability. And then we have a third line, which is we have a global deployment across other regions, and we do latency-based routing. So if for some of the reasons, one of the region is reaching, the maximum allowed capacity, we start routing the traffic to one of the other regions that might have lower traffic, so we accommodate that peak. And so we use this 3-layer strategy, to address extreme scalability needs from, for example, live events. I just wanted to share because that's probably
interesting
for a lot of our
definitely the technical side of how you solve these problems, and that is of course all based on experiences and on data analysis you've been doing to make sure that there is a viewer experience that is not meeting all these problems with buffering and so on, the nightmare of everyone in the industry involved. But I'd like to know from you, Ren, how far can this outsourcing actually go? Being an operator, I mean, obviously you're interested in keeping as much of your business, your core elements, inside your own house. But then you're talking about outsourcing, which is of course the cloud. The cloud is meaning that you rely on other infrastructure, maybe on other service providers. Where is that, the question coming in, actually, should we outsource all of these things, or is it too risky? Is it a problem with security, maybe, depending on the cloud entirely? So how far would you really stretch from that? Or are there areas where you say, no way I'm going to outsource that, Ren?
Okay, so it's a matter of attitude, it's a matter of state of mind, it's a matter of who you are and who is the CTO, as I see it. Because
yeah.
when I'm analyzing it, I'm saying, okay, it doesn't matter who is the operator. If you are X, Y, or Z, if you are small, big, or medium, you are much smaller and less competent than Amazon. You are less competent than Google or than any other. So if I need to trust on someone, not unfortunately, but like it makes more sense to trust on someone that this is his bread and butter. If we are talking about, I don't know, like stability of the cloud solution, as specifically when you lately can like merge between, for example, the Google Cloud and the AWS, and you can work with both in parallel if you are doing it in the proper way, you are getting a stability or like an SLA, which is better than what you are having on-prem, and the costs are lower. So if you're like, put aside emotions, okay, and saying, okay, who is better? How many IT guys AWS are having comparing to what I'm having downstairs? I think that the answer is clear.
Okay, so this is a clear message. How about you, Dimitri, with OTE in Greece? How far does your outsourcing go? How far does your trust go to other companies that we've just heard about? Or are there certain core business elements where you say, no, we are not going to outsource that?
Yeah, I think perhaps the answer to this is the innovation. You know, what it is changing at the pace and at the speed of innovation, and you know, think about this. I mean, we are an operator, and there are hundreds of services like us out there, and looking for audience attention and viewership, and they need to be able to capitalize very quickly the new features that improve the engagement of customers. Sometimes it's very difficult to find. You know, there are technical challenges and complexity to transform, you know, something that it's a user story from marketing or requirement or even a market idea into a concrete product. And this sometimes, most of the times, can be found outside of the company with outsource, or I would call it better, you know, a partnership with someone that it's already there, it's mature enough, has already, you know, already done it a number of times with success, and we partner together in order not to reinvent the wheel.
So there's a great portion of trust in third-party operators because they're specialized, they have a track record, they have experience, and of course that way you benefit from quicker access to innovations from these specialized teams. But Rodrigo, if your clients approach you and say, look, I want to outsource as much as possible, do you actually say, yes, that is something I would recommend? Or would you rather say, no, you have to keep some of the things in your business chain on premises?
I guess it would depend on the you know, the functional role of those platforms, and it would depend on whether you can easily port some of those platforms to the cloud. And you know, I think we are a security company, so security is always in the back of our mind. And you know, there is, yeah, you need to really assess especially those security aspects, whether these can be managed in the cloud, if there's enough experience by the cloud vendor to run these kind of things in the cloud. You know, I don't think there's really one size fits all. I think the way how I would approach it would be, you know, see what would be the easiest platform to port to the cloud in terms of, you know, transitioning the application, in terms of changing the development, the release, the support model, and then try it, get the organization trained and familiarized with that, you know, transition. Again, for example, one of the things one of the challenges we had was basically transition to a DevOps model. And it was not only about having the know-how, but also to set up the organization to work in a DevOps model. So, you know, I think you need to look at this holistically from the entire product life cycle, the application life cycle. How are you going to release it, develop, release it, and support it?
Yeah, I think that's good advice for anyone talking or thinking about using cloud services. Still, I'd like to remain with the challenges involved in choosing the cloud for substantial parts of your business. We've been talking about in the past, you know, now 50 minutes of this, about 35 minutes of this session, about an ideal world in which everybody has, and we're talking about B2C now, of your customers, of your subscribers, has perfect internet access, high speed, and you know, no trouble with the internet, reliable internet access. But we are, of course, talking about countries in which this is not always the case. Central and Eastern Europe, Greece, many other countries in Europe, where people don't have reliable internet, and certainly no high-speed internet, especially in rural areas. Not everybody lives in a city where you can choose from 5 different fiber optic operators. Ran, how do you handle this problem in your markets, that you want to cover the whole nation, but not everybody has got reliable internet, but you're using and relying on the cloud? So what's your strategic positioning regarding these challenges?
Okay. So in that case, I'm having a problem from day one. Since I'm like a full OTT solution, I'm relying on the internet, and it doesn't matter if it's on-prem or in the cloud. The cloud is just generating like one challenge on top of like an OTT solution, which is on-prem, is the latency. What we can see is that when I'm comparing like I don't know, zapping time on stuff which is measured like whether or not I'm having 0.3 seconds less or more, and this is just the latency of going to the cloud and back, this is an issue, but a small one. I think that everyone can understand like 0.3 extra latency because of the cloud. Other than that, it really doesn't matter if I'm on-prem or having a cloud solution. We all understand that in a world with adaptive bitrate, you don't need to have like a fast internet in order to have a TV solution. 6-7 meg, it's enough even to have like an HD. So yes, you need to have like a reliable solution, internet connectivity. Other than that, it doesn't really matter if it's like on-prem solution or a cloud solution. This is like how I see it.
Okay.
I'm totally depending on the internet because
Yeah.
like it's an OTT.
As an OTT service, naturally you're depending on reliable internet access, because otherwise you can't promise the customer the compelling viewing experience that he or she is of course expecting. But then I think with people that know that they have problems with the internet, they probably won't opt for TV over the internet anyway.
but this is the challenge actually that I was struggling in the last few years, is how to build the right service and the right applications in order to allow this kind of instability connectivity. How to be able to do the right retry mechanism, how to build an app which will not crash if there is no internet, how to communicate successfully with the customer, right, in the right way with the customer, and how to allow the customer service to be proactive and to call this customer in advance and to say, we can see that there is a problem with the internet, let's fix it.
Of course,
this is extremely important.
This is coming down to keeping the customers, of course, customer retention, making sure that the customer doesn't cancel. In today's world, you can cancel any month. We're not coming anymore from a world where pay TV subscribers have 24-month subscriptions. So if you're not happy with the experience, with the quality of the signal of the streaming, then you lose the customer. So it's only natural that you're looking into these things and try to anticipate problems before they occur. Dimitri, in Greece, I believe you have, being a legacy telco operator, you have not just OTT, obviously, you have different solutions to target the customers, for example, in rural areas with not much reliable internet access. Can you elaborate a bit on how you reach those problematic customers?
Sure. As I said before, we do have OTT service, and we also have more traditional propositions like DTH, satellite, and IPTV and hybrid IP. Something that it was not mentioned before, and it makes sense also for over-the-top and adaptive bitrate, is also the client side, which is sometimes it's underestimated. I mean, if you think about it, one of the most important aspects of your service is the player, which is inside the application, and the configuration and the adaptability of the player to really swallow some network hiccups. And we are linear TV mainly operator. Our TV service has a bunch of channels, linear channels, and we see a very too much traffic coming from linear TV. And linear TV and VOD, it's totally different configurations and headaches. With VOD, you can cache a lot locally at the client side, at the player side. You can even cache 1 minute. I mean, even if your VDSL is somehow, you pull out the cable and you pull it in again, you may not even notice the change, provide the fact that the player already cast 60 seconds of content. With live TV, that's not the case. It's ephemeral, totally. I mean, if you want to do a good compromise with latency, you have to cast something like 3 to 4 segments of 2 seconds, and perhaps this is too much. Which I understand that the players keep struggling and searching for CDN to request a new manifest, request a new segment, cache it, and so on and so forth. So it's very demanding. So all in all, what's very important for such services is to take a very good, look at the audience, understand what kind of network instabilities you have out there, be able to measure it, and configure the adaptive bitrate at the encoding part also, but also the player side, in order to accommodate the such network issues, and of course provide the best service possible, which means the best rendition possible at any given time.
I think that's a great closing word, by the way. That probably refers to all the speakers in this panel. I mean, that's what we all want to do. Enabling a clear picture and a non-problematic viewing over the internet using the cloud as the backbone. Thank you very much for being part with us, and thank you very much for these great insights. I think we've learned a lot about the benefits of the cloud, but also about the challenges. But most importantly, we've learned about how to solve these potential challenges. This is great advice. Thank you very much for watching us today. We will be back in 15 minutes. There'll be another panel coming for you, redefining broadcaster partnerships for the streaming age, that I have the honor and pleasure to moderate. So please stay with us. After a 15-minute break, we'll be back. Thank you very much. See you soon.